So I am so excited to introduce you to one of the dearest people I know. She is incredible, and she's going to give you guys so much knowledge. I got to meet Stacey a couple of years ago. She actually had moved here from Colorado. We had talked when she was still living in Colorado, but then she moved here, which was so cool because then we got to go hiking together. And for the first time, she spiked with me and we did the snow thing, and it was so much fun. And we did it for a year, and then she moved to Florida. And we haven't been able to hike since. And I miss her like tons. I always tell her, I need you back. I need you back. But I'm going to tell you just a quick thing that happened to me this morning really fast. I had gotten out of the shower. I was getting dressed and I had this epiphany. I am so grateful for my trial of obesity. I thought, what? I'm grateful for my trial? And it hit me hard that if I didn't have that trial, I wouldn't get to meet all of you. And I wouldn't have gotten to meet Stacey. And I wouldn't have such a good friend. So I am so grateful for the opportunity that I have to be in this community and to be close and to have people who know and get me and that I get them. And it's such a gift. So I want to tell you, she started off her marriage to her wonderful sweetheart, Monty, when they lived in a condo, and he said that they had a racquetball court. So right away, she was playing racquetball with him. So she's always moved her body. This is so cool. One of her children calls her the clean queen. He wanted to make sure that I understood that because she makes sure her home is spotty clean. She makes sure of that. And she moves and shakes when she does it. Stacey has an English major with journalism as a minor, and she really always loves to read. That's her favorite thing, and she always has her Kindle on her, he said. She's always done moving, no matter where they've been, no matter what they've done. She's always moved either on a treadmill or an elliptical. She's biked. I remember in Colorado, she would tell me about her bike riding that she would do every day. She's just always moved her body. Stacey and her husband have traveled, and they like to do things. When she does travel, she always takes the stairs. He says it doesn't matter if there's an elevator close by. She's always looking, where are the stairs? Where's the stairs? Where's the stairs? And in fact, she has a grandson. He told me this really quick story. He said that they had just gone to see their son and daughter-in-law. And this little grandson, he got used to grandma wanting to take the stairs because they live in this apartment and it's got stairs or an elevator. And so he constantly was going on the stairs with her. Well, when they left, he kept going over to the stairs and looking for grandma. He wanted to have grandma come out of the stairs. He couldn't stand it. She's always hiked. When she goes on trips, she's done, and I don't know where this is, but I'm going to figure it out. The Tiger's Nest in Bocton, and she's done bike tours. They've gone hiking. They did the Sound of Music tour and got to hike in the Swiss Alps. I'm like so jealous. So all of those things, but I want to introduce you to just such a wonderful person. You're going to learn so much. This is Stacey Fiala.
So good morning and welcome. I am so glad to be here to talk with you about incorporating exercise into this Brightline eating adventure that we're all on. I do have one disclaimer. This class is about moderate exercise, not about achieving superhero feats. So if you're looking for advice on how to win the Ironman, I won't be offended if you get up and leave. Oh, gotta get my clicker. So I grew up feeling fat. And as I look back at these pictures, I don't think that I was fat, but I definitely felt fat from a very early age. I remember being in second grade and sitting on a bench with a couple of other little girls and noticing that my thigh spread was 2 times theirs or more. And it just made me feel ginormous. So I'm not in comparison to anybody else. I was a sturdy kid. And I always felt fat. And as time went on, I did gain weight and got what I would consider to be fat. My highest weight was 215, and I tried everything to lose weight, including fen-phen, which was a horror, until I found Brightline eating. It has been easy, and it has been hard. I lost 65 pounds, and I've been in Bright Line eating for 6 years now in April. And I've been grateful for it every day. About 15 years ago, my sister-in-law told me that she had made a vision board, and that was the first I had heard of them. So I went ahead and made one, and it looked something like this. I had cut out pictures that represented travel. I had some pictures that represented some physical activities that I wanted to do in my life. My daughter had just come home from teaching English in Korea, and I thought that would be a fun thing to do, and I wanted to pursue something like that. So I had a picture of that, and I just had some pictures that made me feel calm and peaceful. And prominently across the middle, I had the words, "Diets work." And although that hadn't been my experience, I needed desperately to believe that somewhere out there would be a plan that would work for me. So I discovered Bright Line Eating. And when I heard Susan talk, I had what I call a skeptical hope that maybe this plan would work. And when I heard Susan say that Bright Line Eating is a no exercise plan, this was my reaction. Happy dance. So I had a pretty good relationship with exercise at that point. I had an elliptical in my basement. It was what I was doing most of the time, during the winter months anyway. But by the time I would get myself down to the basement and do the workout and come back up and get cleaned up, it felt like my day wasn't starting till noon. And so I was really kind of thrilled at the idea of not having to exercise for a while. So why does Susan recommend not exercising? There's two reasons. The first is that it depletes willpower, which is finite. And when we're in the weight loss phase, she wants us to use our willpower to keep our lines bright, and to pay attention to the food that goes into our mouths. The second reason is that she really wants us to uncouple the idea that exercising helps you lose weight, because it really doesn't. And I had discovered that on my own, that it didn't seem to make any difference how strongly or how much I was working out. Really, that had very little to do with my ability to lose weight, and it was like 100% what went into my mouth. So it's better to just take well, we also have this idea, many of us, when we exercise, that if I've worked out, so I can have a little taste of this, which very rarely ends up being just a taste. So it's better to just take that right off the table. There we go. The idea that exercise will help us lose weight is part of a diet mentality, and Bright Line Eating is not a diet. It is all about addiction recovery. So there are some circumstances in which you would not stop exercising. One of them is if you are struggling with a mental health issue and you're using exercise to help manage that, then please do not stop exercising. Or if you have a good relationship with exercise, you enjoy it, you look forward to it, and it's not part of a depletion of your willpower, then go ahead, keep on exercising. I want to talk a little bit about the Bright Line Eating Police. You maybe have heard Susan say that there are no Bright Line Eating Police, and she says that she gives you the freedom to experiment if you must. She always says, if you must. So I want to tell you about an experience I had with Susan just a couple of weeks ago, and I have a really cute picture of me with her, but it didn't make it into my slideshow, so sorry about that. So I live in Sarasota, Florida now. We're about an hour south of Tampa, and I'm part of Tampa's Brightest group. And Susan was in Tampa speaking at a Hay House convention a few weeks ago, and one of my Brightest eaters reached out to her to see if she could meet with us. And so I was able to have dinner with her and a group of about 10 women. And while she was talking, she was explaining that she herself is a 10, that most Bright Line eaters are higher on the susceptibility scale. And so she teaches to the 10s. And she was talking about how it's hard for her to teach to somebody who's at a lower number, but she does recognize that the program is nuanced, and people who are lower on the susceptibility scale might not need to keep their boundaries quite the same as those of us who are higher. And as she was explaining this, I had this aha moment. When she says there's no Bright Line Eating police. When she says experiment if you must, she is not talking to me. She is talking to the people who are lower on the susceptibility scale. That's her way of trying to make the program work for them. So she also said that she's talked to people who are lower on the scale, and they find that they do better too when they just follow the plan as it is written. And there's a lot of good reasons to do that, no matter where you fall on the scale. It's easier to land the plane. It's easier to adjust your food. It's easier to see how your food adjustment affects your body. It's easier to get to food neutrality. It's easier to get to automaticity. So the advice is just follow the plan as she has outlined it. This chart represents a study that Susan did showing how much weight people lost while they were doing the boot camp. And as you can see, the people who were very active lost the least amount of weight. And those who were the least active lost the most amount of weight. So if you're looking to not exercise for a while, that's kind of a nice thing to know. You can still be very successful, maybe even more successful by stopping your exercise program. So even though it seems counterintuitive, it is true that exercise does not lead to weight loss. Okay, I want to introduce the idea of NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So thermogenesis is the production of heat in the body. So it's the burning of calories. And non-exercise activity refers to all the activity you do that is not part of a regimented physical exercise program. And if you look at the graphic, about 4% of your day could be used towards exercise, and nearly 60% of your day would be available for just regular movement as you're going throughout your day. Here's just another way to look at it. Our calorie consumption, the burning of energy, about 60% of it comes from just being alive. The energy your body uses for your heart to beat, your lungs to work, your organs to function, your hair to grow, all that stuff is your basal metabolic rate. 22% of your calorie burn comes from NEAT, and only 12% comes from a formal exercise plan. And dietary induced thermogenesis refers to after you eat, your metabolism does rise a little bit as your body digests the food and stores it and all of that. So as you can see, exercise isn't the big part of how your body burns calories. So we're not actually exercising to burn calories. We're uncoupling that idea. So let's look at some of the benefits of exercise. No surprise, there are lots of benefits to exercise. And in this list, what is not to love? I am interested in this one about breath. Exercise actually makes your lungs more efficient. It also makes your muscles more efficient so that they need less oxygen. And so you won't need as much air for any given exercise. There is a wonderful book called Breath that claims that how you breathe can be revolutionary for your health. We often think about breath as a calming, a way to induce calmness, but breathing correctly has some real physical benefits as well. It nourishes the brain, it improves your immune response, and it helps you live longer. So if you're interested, this book is a great resource for learning how to breathe better and how to breathe while you're exercising. It's nonfiction, which may turn some people off, but it's actually a very readable book. So exercise also has significant benefits for your mental health. There are studies that have shown that exercise is an effective treatment for anxiety and rumination, which rumination is not just thinking about things, but worrying about things and obsessively thinking about things. It's an unhealthy thought process. And a single dose of physical activity immediately decreases anxiety and rumination, and that effect becomes even more pronounced with regular exercise. And of course, exercise can help with depression. And antidepressant medication coupled with exercise leads to bigger improvements than medicine alone.
I'm interested in all psychology, all neuroscience, and this is, I think, the most interesting finding of the last decade in all of science. And this is the insight that your muscles are basically an endocrine organ that secrete hormones into your bloodstream that affect every system of your body. Your muscles, they secrete chemicals and proteins when you exercise that are also really good for your brain health. And one of the first papers almost 10 years ago that was published explaining that when you contract your muscles, they literally secrete these proteins into your bloodstream that make you resilient to stress and can protect you from depression. The scientists called them hope molecules. This idea that literally your muscles are manufacturing like antidepressant molecules. And the only way to get them into your bloodstream where they can then travel to your brain is you have to contract your muscles. Like that's it. It's like a pharmacy in your muscles, and anything you do that contracts them, walking, hiking, running, dancing, weightlifting, like swimming, anything, you are going to be dumping hope molecules into your bloodstream that when they get to your brain, they work as an antidepressant, and they also help people recover from trauma. Like that's like a miracle. Because of course it's wonderful when medications work for you, but for so many people, medications don't work or they don't do the full job in terms of helping with mental health. And the idea that your muscles could provide you with the equivalent of something like an antidepressant medication, that is, I think, is phenomenal.
Isn't that amazing? You hear about a runner's high, and I'm not a runner, so I have never experienced a runner's high, but I have felt this with yoga. I remember the first time that I did yoga, I felt noticeably so good when I was finished. And so there's something like that for everybody, where you will actually be able to tell the difference. And I do have the link on a slide at the end too. So another thing that I've become interested in lately, probably because I have a bunch of little toddler grandchildren, that falls under mental health, is emotional regulation. So I was interested to find out that physical activity can help with that as well. Emotional regulation is important for all of us. We each have times where our emotions get the better of us and we react, and sometimes get angry and react and later regret our behavior. So hopefully at this stage of your life, you have found some ways to deal with those big emotions. But it's interesting to note that movement and rhythm work especially well for this. All of the activities that I've pictured here involve some kind of movement and rhythm. Even coloring, which is not a big motion, it does have a rhythmic aspect to it and is helpful with emotional regulation. But there's many more. Singing, dancing, playing the piano, drumming is especially good. Movement and rhythm. So many of us have used food to regulate our emotions. And so maybe movement and rhythm can be our new go-to. All right, so when should you start to exercise? Susan said that that permission that she was giving us not to exercise is not open-ended. It's not forever. Obviously, there's so many benefits to exercise. It's not good for us to be sedentary for long, long periods. So she outlines 3 conditions that should be met. The first is that your food should be automatic. You should be writing it down, committing it, and eating only in exactly what you write down. Your lines should be bright. You should be eating, you should not be eating sugar or flour. You should be eating 3 meals, and those meals should be, you shouldn't be fudging on your quantities. And you should have a little bit of experience with bright line eating, a minimum of 3 months. So if you notice, these 3 conditions are really all about the same thing. It's all about keeping your lines bright. The weight loss is the benefit that follows. The lines bright is the recovery model part of it. All right, so what if your lines aren't bright? You have probably heard the term crystal vaser in here, which represents people who have started bright line eating and have not had a single break. There's not a single crack in that crystal vase of their recovery. I don't know if any of you are crystal vasers. I would guess that most people are not, although I know they exist, like a unicorn, right? So, but if you're not, If you're not a crystal vaser, get curious about what your obstacles are and what you need to do to overcome them. Consider how often you are breaking and how severe are those breaks. Would exercise tap your willpower in a way that would threaten your lines even more? Are your sugar and flour lines bright? If they are not, you will always struggle. In the end, you have to make the decision by yourself by weighing out all these things. It's not healthy to be sedentary, so you have to figure out, are you able to exercise while you work to get your lines bright? There is one time that you should not start an exercise program, and that is if you are nearing maintenance. And the reason for that, of course, is that you're going to be changing your food plan and trying to adjust things, and so that's not a good time to introduce exercise into the program as well. It's too many variables to work out. All right, so what kind of exercise should you do? There are so many options, and I really believe that there is something for everybody. Whatever your physical condition is, there's something you can do to move. Whatever your budget is, whatever your personality, movement and exercise are for everybody. I mentioned yoga. I also love pickleball. We moved to Florida, and so I also love wild swimming. Have you heard that term before? It refers to swimming in natural bodies of water rather than pools. So that's been a kind of new thing that I'm able to participate in more regularly. So pickleball was brand new to me when we moved to Florida, and it has been so much fun. And it was a little scary to start because I joined a neighborhood group and was brand new to it, but it has had great benefits and was worth the risk. So don't be afraid to try something new. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with Volkssporting. It's German, started in Germany. It's non-competitive, and it means sport for the people. And they have walking, hiking, cycling, swimming, cross-country skiing events that you can just show up at these events and participate for free. So Google it, and you can see if they have any of that going on in your area. There are so many options. Research clubs in your area, but be willing to try something new. This is just a little story about my son, Evan, who tried something new. When we moved to Colorado when he and his twin sister were starting high school. And one of his friends' dads told him before we moved that he should get involved in something right away. Evan is really quiet. He's an introvert, and so we were a little concerned about the move, whether he'd be able to make friends and get involved. But his friend's dad told him to do that, and so we got there. Well, he decided that he would like to try out for the freshman basketball team. We got there in August, so nothing was going on with basketball. We were there a few weeks before school started, so there wasn't a whole lot going on, but he did find out that the cross-country team was meeting every morning and running together. And so he was not really sure that he wanted to run. Didn't necessarily sound fun to him, but he thought it would be good training, get him in shape for basketball. So he went and met with the team and started running with them. And it turned out that he was actually pretty good at it. His coach, well, he was able to run varsity as a sophomore, which he was really proud of. His coach enjoyed telling the story every year at the banquet of how Evan showed up in his basketball shoes and was able to keep up with some of the better runners on the team. And after a few days, the coach had to finally tell him, you need to get running shoes, which his clueless parents didn't really have any idea. So but I was proud of him because he tried something new and tried something even though he wasn't sure he would like it, and he gave it some time. So what are the obstacles to introducing exercise back into your life? I think time is always a problem to put something new and something that does take some time to do. And along with that, conflicting responsibilities, they kind of go together because a lot of times our time is a problem because we have other obligations. So I wanted, Susan suggests that the best way to overcome this time problem is to set your alarm for half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour earlier, which is great if you can do it, but a lot of people cannot do that. They're already burning the candle at both ends. So I just wanted to share a couple of things that have worked well for me. One is I've added writing down my intentions for the next day into my nightly habit stack. And it's different than a to-do list because there's lots of things I want to get done in a day. But my intentions are the 1 or 2 or occasionally 3 things that I really want to get done the next day. So it's my priority. And when exercise is on the list, somehow I'm able to get it in. When I write it down at night, I can just forget about it till morning, and then there it is. I'm reminded what it is that my priority for that day is, and usually I can find a way to make that work. Another thing would be to figure out how to multitask. What can you do to move while you're already doing something else? Like if you're dropping a kid off to a soccer game, they have to be there 20 minutes early. Instead of sitting and chatting, maybe you can be circling the field, or dinner needs to be cleaned up every night. I know families that turn it into a dance party and turn on the music and everybody helps and they move while they all work together to clean up dinner. I also think it's great if you can take a look at how can you find ways to not waste the time that you do have. I have a daughter, Evan's wife actually, who uses a strategy that she calls pairing. So while Evan is up in the morning getting dressed and eating breakfast, getting ready to go off for the day, she and the 2-year-old are also up and getting ready, and they walk out the door at the same time, him off to work and her on her daily walk with the baby. So that kind of helps them not to putz away the morning. I'm a putzer, and so one thing that I do is I get dressed first thing in the morning. And by that, I mean the very first thing in the morning. I get up, I use the restroom, and I get dressed in the clothes for whatever activity I'm doing that day. And it's kind of like magic. I actually get onto what I'm supposed to be doing and do my morning checklist, and it works really great. Social support. It's well known that if you are exercising with a buddy, you're more likely to do it. Colleen shared our experience. I had just talked to her on the phone a couple of times. She wasn't like in my inner circle at the time that we started exercising, and it led to a wonderful friendship and a great accountability, and was really a wonderful thing. I had a similar experience with another gal. I was at a bridal shower and met a woman who I'd never met before. We got to talking and found that we both enjoyed riding bikes recreationally. There was a reservoir near our home, so we made a date to go ride around the reservoir, and that turned into 7 years of biking together for 2 or 3 days a week, every day, all through the seasons that allowed bike riding, and also into another treasured friendship. So don't think that because you don't know a buddy yet that there's not options to find somebody with a similar interest. You don't have to join a gym if you don't have facilities. There's plenty of things that you can do at home with very little equipment. And always remember that YouTube is your friend. There are so many options on social media platforms, streaming platforms. A woman in my Tampa Bay's Brightest group does chair yoga, which I had never heard of before, but I went on YouTube and tried a couple of their routines, and they were actually very good. I've used Walk at Home with Leslie Sansome many times. It's great for in the winter. Before I had been introduced to winter hiking, I would do that at home, and that was a good one. Yoga's great. Their Body Groove, I don't know if you've heard of that. At some point, I started seeing it a lot on my Instagram, but they have some, you can pay to join their platform, or on YouTube, you can get little 5-minute, basically, dance parties where they teach you a move and turn on some fun music, and there's a lot of things you can do in a short period of time. So if you want to try something new, just search for it. Just last week, my husband told me about something he heard about on the radio called radio Daiso. Have any of you heard of that? It's from Japan. Since 1929, every morning at 6:30 a.m., the public radio station in Japan plays this 3-minute little music, and there's this routine that they do to it. And so you can YouTube it. And it was actually, it felt great. It was just 3 minutes, got you moving and got a little bit of that runner's high, actually doing it. And it can be done with little children. They apparently started it because older people were not able to raise their hands above their head. So this was just a way to get anybody of any age exercising and moving. So that was a fun thing to try. All right, so now you're exercising, and the big question that people want to know is, should I add food? The answer is no. No. For this kind of exercising, very rarely would anybody need to add food. If you were doing endurance training or intense weight training, maybe you would need to add food. But if you're just doing moderate exercise, chances are you're not going to need to add food. Certainly you would want to try exercising without adding food before even thinking about it. And when it comes time to make that decision, you want to make sure you're doing that from your centered self and not from your lizard brain. My lizard brain is always looking for an excuse to eat something more. And this is where that idea of uncoupling, the idea from exercise and food, can play in. You don't deserve more food just because you expended a little bit more energy. So that said, there may be times that you do need to think about adding food. If your weight is going down, now if you're on weight loss, that's a great thing, not a problem. But if you're on maintenance and your weight is dropping, maybe you would need to look at adding more food. If you are hungry all the time, if you are tired or fatigued all the time, and if you're having food thoughts that you're not able to manage, all of these could be a point to a need for more food. And if you need food, add more food. And you want to do this before you break your lines. So that's why it's good to know what the signs are. Because we're a recovery program, we want to keep our lines. So if you need to add food in order to be able to keep your lines, that's the better way to go. But if you need food, add it. Don't make your body suffer. Listen to it and give it what it needs. Again, make that decision from your authentic self and not from the lizard brain that may be angling for more food or maybe angling for more suffering so that you lose weight faster. That is also not what your authentic self wants. When you add food, it is always good to have a guide. Somebody to talk it over with. You can have a guide or an experienced buddy, or if you have a subscription to Brightline Eating, that is a wonderful benefit of belonging to the official program. One thing to remember, if you're taking food advice from a nutritionist or a dietitian who is not a part of Brightline Eating, they aren't going to be thinking about your lines. And keeping your lines bright is still a critical part of your program. So be aware of that. They don't know how your brain works, and a lot of them aren't even aware of how a food addiction works. Some people want to try adding food only on the days that they are exercising. And Susan prefers automaticity, which means you would add food every day. So she suggests that if you're going to add food, try doing it that way first. Some people find it really helpful to have exercise goals, and it's pretty well established that you'll accomplish more with a goal and a plan than with a wish and a prayer. I want to just talk about the idea of a floor and a ceiling. That idea has been around for a while. I didn't hear about it till well into my program. But so the ceiling of your exercise plan would be what you want to do on a normal day. But life happens. There are work deadlines, there are travel plans, people get sick, there are things that happen so that you cannot do what you planned, can't hit your ceiling. So then you want to have a floor. And that is, what will you at least do on your exercise days that when you can't do the whole routine. So for me, what that often looks like is 15 push-ups. I can do them anywhere. in a very short amount of time. It's obviously nowhere near playing pickleball for an hour and a half, but it keeps the identity. I sometimes also will just do a couple of sun salutations, but it's important to kind of keep that identity as I am somebody who exercises. Another piece of advice that I heard that I thought was really great is to never miss 2 exercise days in a row. And another good one was to always exercise on Monday. It's sort of like that advice to always make your bed. You know, get your week started off right. Get the momentum going right from the beginning. It's pretty easy to come up with competitive goals, but there are a lot of things you can do that are not so competitive. I'm not big into competition, so these are just some ideas of some ways to approach it. I wanted to share with you one of the goals that I had, which was not actually an exercise goal, but it did affect my physical activity. So I became aware of an Instagram account called 1,000 Hours Outside. The average American kid spends 1,200 hours on screens, and so this account was started as a way to kind of balance that and encourage families and children to spend more time outside. Richard Louv, who wrote The Last Child in the Woods, says, "Whatever shape nature takes, it offers each child an older, larger world separate from parents. Unlike television, nature does not steal time, it amplifies it." British educator Charlotte Mason seems to be the originator of this idea that kids should spend a lot of time outside. And she reiterates the idea that they should be left to their own devices for the most part, although she encourages parents to take them out. So you're there for a little bit of supervisory oversight. And she was actually born long before TV, 1842. So this idea has been around for a long time. But she emphasizes that these hours outdoors should be long. Long they should be, not 2, but 4, 5, or 6 hours children should have on every tolerably fine day. So this idea of 1,000 hours outdoors is, it is 3 hours a day. Works out to be just a little bit less than 3 hours a day. So I didn't have children at home, but I felt like it would be a good goal for me also. And so 3 hours a day, plenty ambitious. So after, yes, yes. So after we got to Florida and got a little bit settled in, I decided to go ahead and do it. So this was my goal for 2022. And I know you're going to say, but you were in Florida, which is true. We have lots of beautiful, beautiful days in Florida, but we do have some beastly humidity as well. I went to girls' camp last year, and those 4 days were as long as any winter. But the research shows that this is a great goal for me, and it would be for you too. So here are a few pictures of some of the things that I experienced during that year of being outside. And obviously, this is just a tiny, tiny sampling of some of the things that I saw and did that induced wonder. Sometimes it's as simple as riding my bicycle parallel with a dragonfly for a few yards, or sometimes it's seeing a raccoon peek out of the woods. But there are so many moments of quiet joy that I would have missed completely if I was inside. To get to that 1,000 hours, I ate a lot of meals outside, which automatically makes them much better too. So, I mean, there's lots of things you can do to hit that 3-hour mark. But this is my favorite picture from the Instagram account. So, do you think next winter we can all fit our tiny little bodies into one of those buckets? I think we should try. So there's lots of evidence that exercising outdoors gives you additional benefits, more benefit than exercising indoors. In fact, they even say that exercising with fake plants around can give you some better results. But why do that if you can actually go outside? And training in green spaces also has those benefits. So I love this quote. Everybody needs beauty as well as bread, places to play in and pray in, where nature may heal and give strength to body and soul. It's summertime. Go outside, exercise outside, strengthen your muscles and your brain, enjoy your body and this beautiful world that God created for us. Have some adventures and make exercise and time outdoors a part of your one wild and beautiful life. Thank you.